Hello and welcome to Cryptid by Region, Ireland. This week we're continuing our Cryptid by Region series with a look at the Emerald Isles, also known as Ireland. I figured with St. Patrick's Day being last Wednesday, it would only make sense for us to look at what cryptids this area is said to have. I will mention that this is a bit problematic, due to Ireland having a lot of tales about unusual creatures, but most of those are distinctly found in purely myth-based legends. While some may consider many cryptids myth, there is a division, due to some beasts are only known to be simply symbolic, or used to generate a particular lesson. So as a heads up, I dare to draw that line, and as such, there may be a lot of creatures missing that you would assume would be here. Due to this, I undoubtedly will miss a few, so I apologize in advance. However, I can happily tell you that Ireland does have some actual cryptids, and I look forward to telling you about them as we continue our cryptid family road trip. Before getting into the history of Ireland, I must note that maybe it is common knowledge, but I was completely unaware that it is actually split into two countries. The larger landmass is simply known as Ireland or the Republic of Ireland, and it is an independent country. At the northeast part of the island, it is called Northern Ireland, and it is considered a constituent country of the United Kingdom. In saying this, for the sake of this video, and to save from possible confusion, I will not make a distinction unless it is necessary for the story. Ireland has an incredibly long and involved history. As such, it would almost make for a video itself, so for one of those few times in this series, I'll try to give a very brief overview. It is believed that humans lived on the island as far back as 12,500 BC, and the Celtic people didn't arrive until around 300 BC. After this time, the Romans are said to have taken control of the island, and many important people would arrive afterwards, including the famed St. Patrick, who became known as the Apostle of Ireland. We can't forget to mention that the Vikings first set up camps in 795. They would continue to set up villages through the years, where they would also keep a stronghold in Dublin. The Vikings would lose the Battle of Clontarf in 1014, and this would lead to a decline in their culture. However, the towns that they set up would continue to grow. England took interest in controlling the island, which included King Henry VIII's attempt in 1536. However, it wouldn't be until after 1603 when England officially controlled the island. Over the course of many years, Ireland would continually fight off and on against the rule of the British, and this would carry on until 1921. In December of that year, the Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed, which designated Ireland as a free state. But it also allowed Northern Ireland to be a free state, but the opportunity to stay with the United Kingdom, which it did. Even though they were free, Ireland was still considered a British Commonwealth until they declared themselves a republic in 1949. I know I missed a lot in that history, but trust me, it is quite in-depth. When it comes to Ireland, due to it being split up into two countries, there are two flags. Since 1953 to 1973, Northern Ireland utilized the flag known as the Ulster Banner, and it can still be seen in sporting events and rallies. However, the official flag is the same Union Jack or Union flag that the United Kingdom uses. Now, Ireland's flag has a fairly simple design, where it is just three bands of color, being green, white, and orange. However, the green stands for the color of the flag that the Irish used when they fought to gain their independence from Britain. The orange band is said to represent Protestants, and it originates from the Battle of Boyne. This is where Protestant King William III defeated Catholic King James II. William was officially known as William of Orange, so the color seems self-explanatory. The white band, being centered between the two colors, represents a hope for peace and unity between the two religions, as well as meaning purity. I should also note that the African country known as the Ivory Coast, or officially as the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, has a very similar looking flag to Ireland, but the colors are reversed. So, let's get to the cryptids. The first creature that I would like to talk about at first seems like something from myth, but the more you delve into it, the more it appears to be in line with a cryptid. This being is known as a slua, and it is a really odd creature. According to lore, these beings are said to be interested in taking the souls of people who are sick or dying, although they will take those that are healthy as well. Unlike many other stories about beings taking souls to move them onto another plane of existence, these creatures do it with the goal of making more of their kind. More often than not, they are seen in the sky as a black mass of what appears to be birds, which many liken to ravens or blackbirds, but according to descriptions, they look quite different. They have long leathery wings, a bony frame covered in loose skin, their hands and feet have long claws, they have sparse strands of long black hair on their head, and they have a sharp beak that has many crooked, pointed teeth inside. During the daytime they are said to hide in the forests and only emerge when it becomes night. It is said that they make their nightly rounds on a wild hunt of sorts, looking for souls, but they aren't particular on who they attack. Many stories claim that it is best not to wander in the forest at night, since this is the best way to garner their attention, although it seems just walking around at night anywhere isn't safe. Another legend states that by either saying their name once or up to 9 times will bring them to you. I hope I haven't cursed myself by now. The only way to avoid the attack is to offer up another soul in exchange for yours. The best way to avoid an attack is to stay inside and keep all the doors and windows shut. It is said that they fly from the west, so many people pay particular attention to keeping the windows and doors on that side of the house shut tight. It is said that if they are unable to gather the souls that they claim is theirs, then they have no qualms with taking out on pets or livestock. It should be noted that there is a story that a woman from the town of Roscommon was actually eaten alive by these beings. For the most part, the only sign that they are around is the sound of many rustling wings or the obvious black mass of what appears to be birds flying in the night sky. What is really interesting is what drives me to state that this may not simply be a myth, is that some claim that they are actually considered part of the Fae. While many may consider the Fae to be a myth, it should go without saying that you find these beings are considered very real in Ireland, Scotland, and other parts of the world. One final thing about these beings is that in some versions of the lore, they are capable of manipulating people into doing their work for them. Moving from one creature of the Fae, we are finding ourselves talking about a real oddity, which would be the changeling. According to the lore, fairies will kidnap an infant and replace it with one of their own in the crib. For the most part, the family is unaware of this switch, and things only become apparent as the child ages. It is said that either the teeth or ears will take on more of a fairy shape, which is obvious, but the bigger oddity is that the child will be more advanced intellectually than a normal human child. In some versions of this tale, an elder can be placed in the crib, with the intent of them living out the remaining life in relative ease. It is unknown why a child is taken in the first place, but many feel it is done because the child is considered beautiful, or they want a human servant, or they simply steal the child as a form of revenge. According to some tales, the family are aware of the change, but go along with it for fear that their child will be hurt. Interestingly, this encounter doesn't just happen to children. They are well known to abduct men and women as well. In their place, they leave a wooden log that has been enchanted to look and act like its human counterpart. Not long after this, the log will die and the family will bury it, never knowing that it wasn't really their loved one. In an odd twist, there is actually a story where a man killed his wife, Bridget Cleary, in 1895 because he believed that she was a changeling. While that story is tragic, it does go to show that some do view this being as a very real thing. As an interesting note, this being was referenced in the recent version of the movie Hellboy, where the pig-like creature known as Gruagach was found replacing the baby of a human family. That name will come up again in this video. Going from fairies and that type of creature, we move to the water. Apparently, it was discovered that on October 21st, 1871, a strange sea monster was reported near the town of Kilkee. In the article, it states a group of partiers, including a clergy member, were hanging out at Diamond Rocks. While watching the water, they noticed a huge beast rise from the surface 70 yards from where they stood. It had an enormous head that was shaped like a horse, and its long neck even had a mane that was said to resemble seaweed, but it was in fact hair. It had huge eyes that they described as glaring at them, and even though the body was never fully seen, they claimed that it was apparently massive due to how the waves reacted when it struck the beast. The creature stayed on the surface for quite some time before it suddenly vanished under the waves. According to a naturalist named Philip Henry Koss, he studied the reports and couldn't help but feel that it appeared to be describing an extinct group of marine reptiles known as Anelosauria. This group includes creatures such as the ichthyosaur and, interestingly, the plesiosaur. This isn't the only monster said to be in the waters around Ireland. There are stories that a creature known simply as Mucky is living in the Killarney Lake called Torque or Middle Lake. This is more of a recent event, and from what I can tell, no one has actually seen the creature on the surface. However, in 2003, scientists from the Char Conservation Group were using sonar to study fish populations when suddenly a massive solid object appeared on the screen for a moment. On further scans, the object was gone, but this led many to suspect that there was some unknown creature under the water. One of the scientists said that they were unsure what the thing was, but it definitely wasn't a technical glitch. What is weird is that in studying the area, the peak of one of the nearby mountains is actually called Cannocknug Peast, or Peak of the Serpent. In the lore behind this name, it claims that at one time a giant serpent lived in the area, and it actually created one of the lakes. While I doubt this is a literal story, it is interesting that the two stories seem to work together. I saw another tale about a creature known as the Loch Foyle monster. There is a video of this creature which appears to show a Nessie-like being, but from what I can tell, many claim it is a hoax. Personally, I feel, due to the information provided, that it seems very suspicious. Our next creature is fairly well known, and it is called the Duarcú. This name means water hound. The beast is said to appear to be a cross between a dog and an otter, but it is massive in size. It is 7 to 10 feet long, has yellow eyes, sharp teeth, its fur can range in color from black to brown to pure white, it has a long tail, and it can walk on land as easily as it can swim in the water. These creatures are said to come in pairs, with one being seen, but the mate is hidden nearby. In death, they let out a high-pitched whistling sound, which alerts the mate, and it will spring from the water and attempt to kill whoever hurt the other one. They are said to be migratory, but they make their home in most all bodies of water around Ireland, with some claiming that they have even been seen in Canada and the US. Primarily, sightings have been reported in Serene's Loch or Achill Island in County Mayo, and recently on Omri Island in County Galway. With its previous location, in 2000, a man named Sean Cochran was looking out in the water when he heard an odd hiss followed by a loud splash. After this, he caught sight of a creature swimming so fast that it crossed the massive lake in a matter of seconds. Once it reached the other shore, he described it as what was mentioned previously, but it had orange-colored flippers. He claimed it let out a haunting screech and vanished into the water. There are reports that in 1674, a man was attacked by one of these creatures while he stood on the bank of a lake, and it tried to drag him into the water. Probably the most interesting part of this being is that there is a documented death to these creatures on September 22nd, 1722. On this day, a woman named Grania Conley from Glenod in County Leitrim was washing some clothes in the lake when after some time her husband Terence became concerned with how long she'd been away. So he headed down to the water to check on her, only to find her lifeless, mutilated body lying on the bank. What made this worse was laying on top of her was a Duarcú, appearing to be taking a nap. Grief-stricken, Terence grabbed his dagger and stabbed the slumbering beast in the heart. Before it died, it let out a high-pitched screech, and before long, its mate burst from the water and immediately started to run at the man. Terence jumped on his horse and tried to get away as the beast followed. Feeling as if he had managed to get away, he took his horse to a blacksmith shop in Cashwagaran in order to be reshoed. While there, he told the blacksmith of what had just occurred, who was very familiar with these creatures. Terence was told that the creature would lower its head and try to attack his horse, but when it did, he would need to stab the sword through its neck. With this information, he went back out onto the road, where he found the second Duerku. It lowered its head and rammed his horse, but he was able to sink his blade deep into its neck, killing it. Sadly, with this whole event, the horse was killed as well. While this story may seem outlandish, I must tell you that in Cornwall Cemetery in Drummonds, Grania and Terence's graves can be found. Grania's headstone is mostly illegible now, other than her name, but there is an image of a Duerchu with a spear piercing it carved on her stone. On Terence's stone there is an image of him on a horse. For those as curious as I was, apparently it is said that the horse and the two Duerchus were buried in a grave in the county Sligo, not far from Cashwagarin. As usual, I couldn't get into every cryptid that this location has without at least making it a two-part video. However, much like the states we cover, Ireland does have legends about Bigfoot, which include a being that I mentioned earlier called the Gruagach. There are many stories about wolf-like beings in the form of dire wolves, or even flat-out werewolves. In some stories, there are even a race of people known to be werewolves who are utilized as mercenaries. Of course, this area does have way more legends about the Fae and Wee folk than I mentioned here, but that would require a video specifically about that topic alone. There also is a strange aquatic horse known as the Kelpie. I would have talked about it in this video, but I feel I have mentioned it quite a lot in prior uploads, especially in my mythical horse video. Finally, I have to add Selkies to this list, which are beings that look like seals but can shed their skin to look human. I would say it is the Irish version of a mermaid, if they already didn't have a similar creature known as the Marrow. Before ending this video, I did want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I didn't make a video in my normal time frame previously, but this was due to Sunday being my wife and father's birthday, so I was focused on that. You know that I'm fairly consistent with my upload schedule, and only miss one if there is a good reason. Well, I'm fairly certain that you can agree that was a pretty good reason. I literally sat down and started working on this video Tuesday, but I quickly realized that by the time I uploaded it, it would be Wednesday, and it wouldn't allow the video to be current for even a whole week. So I made the hard decision to cut my losses and get it ready for today. Anyway, as always, keep voting for which state you would like to see next in our Cryptid by State series by writing the name of that state in your comment. I can confidently say that the first Monday of April will be Wisconsin. While Arkansas put up a good fight, it ultimately fell short by only a few votes. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may be interested in this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.